B, and we're picking up from Shegazra Malchus Harasha Zara. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines up from the bottom. We'll say our shir for the rest of this week is sponsored by Chaim and Rebecca Shrek in honor of the upcoming yard site of Freda Bas Moshe Yosef. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an aliyah and the family a nechama. So we'll say, let's begin. So we'll say, so remember again, we left off in the middle of the Ma'aser of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. And remember again, the Gemara says that, that's Shegazar Malchus Harasha Gzera. We'll say it's a very profound story. That at one time the Romans decreed a dramatic decree. What was the decree? Kalasomech yihareg. Whoever confers smicha will be killed. The Romans were trying to go ahead, I will say, and stop the institution, eradicate the institution of smicha. And so they made a decree. Whoever goes ahead and grants smicha will be killed. So the Gemara says, not only that, whoever receives smicha will be killed. And any ear and any city in which smicha is conferred will be wiped out. And any city in the tchum of a city in which smicha was conferred will be uprooted, will be destroyed as well. So as we'll say, what the Romans understood was the greatest way to stop smicha was essentially what? Was collective punishment. Collective punishment. So if you confer smicha, we're done. Ma'as Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. So what did Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava do? Halach v'yashav ben shnei harim gidolim u'bein shtei ayaros gidolos. He went and he sat, literally he situated himself between two large mountains and between two large cities. Bein beis tchumei Shabbos, and in between two tchumim, two boundaries. Bein usha l'shafra'am. So we'll say, what does he do? Essentially, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava finds a spot that is pretty much like in no man's land. So it's not in any particular city, it's not in any particular tchum. And what does he do? V'samach sham chamisha zkenim. And he conferred smicha upon 5 elders. 5 elders. So we'll say his goal was to confer smicha upon a group of talmidim without compromising the safety, ultimately again, of the nearby residents. Who were the Zakenim? Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. For Rav Avia Mosif, Af Rabbi Nechemia. So we'll say amazing. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava confers smicha. Kevan sheikiru bahem ayvim. We'll say when the Romans realized what happened, Amr lahem. So the Romans come now and run after this group. Amr lahem. We'll say, listen to this ma'isa. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says to his talmidim, Banai, Rotsu, run away. Amrulo Rebbe va'ata matehei alecha. So they say, Rebbe, what's going to happen to you? You want us to run from the Romans, but what are you going to do? We'll say, listen to this. Amr lahem, hareini muta lifneim ke'even she'in lahofchin. I will stand in front of them. Like a rock which cannot be overturned. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says, I will protect you. You run, and I will stand in protection. Amru, the Gemara says, Lo zazu misham. So the students from Rabbi say, because of this act of Mesiras Nefesh ben Bava, the chain of smicha continues. The shalshalas of Klal Yisrael continues. Amru lo zazu misham at shenatzu legufo gimel meos lulanios shal barzel. They stabbed Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava 300 times with iron spears. Va'aso legufo kikavra. And Nebuchadnezzar will say, ultimately they went ahead and they pierced his body like a sieve. So we'll say Yehuda ben Bava lives already well after the Churban, and yet again he's conferring smicha. The dinim of knasos still apply. So how could the Gemara say that the dinim of knasos stopped? Amrav Nachman bar Yitzchak lo tema dini knasos elo shelo danu dini nefashos. Rather, I will say what it means is that already 40 years before the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the Sanhedrin stopped adjudicating capital cases. That's what it means. They moved out of the Lishkas Hagazos. They settled in the area in front of the Beis Hamikdash, in front of the Harabayas, and they stopped adjudicating capital cases. Why? My taima. Kevan dechazu dinefishilu roschen v'lo yachli lemeidan. Because I will say, already in the 40 years before the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, there was a certain avirah, a certain atmosphere of lawlessness, which pervaded the Jewish society. As a result, there were too many murders. So it would have caused the court to have to execute too many people. It is better for us ultimately again to go ahead and move from place to place in order that ultimately, again, we should not have to adjudicate these cases. Because the pasuk says, you will go ahead and you will act as they will instruct you from that place. What do we learn from there? Melamed shamakam gorim. But so we learn from here that what? That ultimately the Sanhedrin could only adjudicate capital cases if they are situated in the Lishkas Hagazis. If they're not Lishkas Hagazis, ultimately the chamber of hewn stone, they can't adjudicate the capital cases. Therefore, Abba say the Gemara says over here, that's what it means. 40 years already before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, the Sanhedrin uprooted itself and ultimately again stopped adjudicating capital cases. Good. Says the Gemara, Mea Ushmona Mesulo. So Abba say, is that true that Rome only ruled for 180, that Rome ruled 180 years? Is that it? Vatani, Rabbi said, listen to this. We're going to show that in fact they ruled for longer than 180 years. Why? Vatani, Rabbi Yossi Berebi. We'll say top of test. Malchus Paras, Bifnei Abaye Shloshim Va'arba Shana. We'll say, so the Persian Empire ruled while the base, this is not talking about their general rulership, this is talking about how long they ruled over the Jews. So they ruled over the Jews while the Beis HaMikdash still stood for 34 years. Malchus Yavan, Greece, Bifnei Abayis, ruled over the Jewish people while the Beis HaMikdash still stood for Mea Ushmonim Shana, for 180 years. Malchus Chashmonai, we'll say the Chashmonai, I mean, this is the Hanukkah story. Bifnei Abayis, Mea V'Shalosh, ultimately ruled over the Beis HaMikdash, ruled over the Jews for 103 years. Malchus Beis Hordus, I will say the Herodian monarchy. Remember again, Hordus, I will say just on the progression, we saw the story. Herod, Hordus, was a Chashmonai slave. He was a Hasmonean slave who rebelled against his masters, went ahead and wiped out the entire family, and then seized the throne for himself. So Malchus Beis Hordus, Mea V'Shalosh, ultimately was also 103 years. Mikan ve'elach, I will say from this point forward, from this point forward, you could go ahead and you could see how many years ultimately, again, how many years there were until the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So also, take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Mikan ve'elach, Rashi says, Mimalchus Hordus ve'elach harav abayis ubat lamachus. Remember again, at the end of Herodian rule, that's when the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. Seva chashav, Rashi says, third wide line from the top. Haba limnos seder chacham v'chayim. O shnei shtar chov. O shum ma'isa ma'ora. Yimana l'chorba me'achsha. So we'll say we're going to discuss this in today's daf a little bit more, which is this concept of dating documents. How documents were dated. Was it dated from the Churban? Was it dated from a different way? We'll discuss that in just a little bit. Alma, but I will say that for our purposes, the important part of Rashi is as follows. Alma, masa'an v'shis kodem churban abayis pashta. So remember in yesterday's daf, how did the Jews wrestle control from the Greeks? So the Gemara in yesterday's daf said that it was a Jewish-Roman alliance. Remember, it lasted for a little bit of time. So we'll say, watch this. So now, if the way that we got control away from the Greeks was through the Jewish-Roman partnership, so we'll say, so that means when the Chashmonaim took over, it wasn't just that was with Roman help, which I will say, at least according to the Gemara over here, which means that Lamaisa again, that means the 103 years of the Chashmonaim, plus the 103 years of Herod, should also be counted as Roman rulership over Eretz Yisrael, which then leads you not to 180 years, like we said before, but rather what? 206 years. So the Gemara says, Alma, Masan v'shisavu. Therefore, again, it's 206 years. Va'at amret meushmonamavu. And yet you said it's only 180 years. Ella esrin v'shis shnin kamu beheminu sayu b'hadi Yisrael v'lo ishtabdubu. Rather, I will say what it means is as follows. Remember, so how do you account for the 26-year discrepancy? Oh, because remember in yesterday's daf, I will say, what did we learn? That in the first 26 years of the Roman-Jewish partnership, things were well. Remember again that there was peace between Rome and the Jews. Remember again, this was the agreement from yesterday's daf, that if the emperor is from Rome, the governors will be from Eretz Yisrael, and vice versa. So for 26 years, the Romans honored the agreement. After that, they began to subjugate the Jews. Therefore, again, I will say, the first 26 years of the Roman Judaic partnership ultimately is not counted towards the time that Rome ruled over Eretz Yisrael. The 180 years represents again the 206 minus the 26 that they honored the partnership, and therefore it's 180 years that they oppressed Klal Yisrael. So the Gemara goes weiter. Therefore, again, the 26 years of the original partnership are not included. We'll say first wide line, Testament Aleph. Because remember again, the lashon of the Brisa was that it was 180 years that the Malchus Harasha, that the evil monarchy extended its grip over Klal Yisrael. The first 26 years did not satisfy that criteria. There was peace, and therefore again it's not counted. Amrat Papa. So both say now we're going to speak a little bit about the dating system, specifically again how it works with dating of shtaros. Amrat Papa. I haitana velo yoda prati kama. So kama hava. We'll say if the Tana, literally again, if the Tana, Rashi says, Amar Papa itai haitana, disanye lahach masnisin, say the chashav achar achurban. So we'll say, remember again, if the Tana of the Brisa said before that really we should date things based on the number of years since the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. So we'll say, if for some reason the Tana gets confused, how many years is it after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash? So the Shayle L'Safra, all one needs to do is ask a scribe, Kama ksiv, tell me, how are you dating your documents? How are you dating your documents? So the Gemara says, and what do you do with that? After you go ahead and you get that number. So take a look at Rashi, I'm sorry, just one more time. Velo Yada, Rashi says, B'minyan sharim shachar chorban habayis kama shanim. Ta b'shana shu omed ba, lo yada ishnas chafi alameos, o shnas chafalef, o shtaim. So we'll say, so if the Tana does, let's say the Tana gets confused and he's not sure how many years post Churban are we, then what? Neshayli l'safra kama. Look at one more Rashi. Rashi says l'sofer hakosev gittin shtaros shumon l'malchus yavan. Now we'll say the way they were dating shtaros in the aftermath of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash was in accordance with the reign of Greece. We'll discuss why Greece. Kidamar l'kamon bagola ein monin ela l'malchus yavan. Ve'in monin l'tchilas malchusan, ve'in monin l'tchilas malchusan, shahayu sheish sharim mikutao shalmacho. So again, we're going to discuss this a little bit more on Amud Beis. But they would date in accordance with Greece. So I want to know how many years since the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash. So I go ahead and I ask a sofer who's dating his documents in accordance with the monarchy of Greece. So it says the Gemara, what do I do? The Shaila Safra, Kama Ksiv. Ask the sofer, tell me what year are you putting in your document? V'nitfi alayu esrin shnin. Ultimately, again, and add on to that number 20 years. Umashkich le'luchumrei, and you will find your answer. V'simanech, and what's the simon for this? Zeli esrim shana anochi b'veisecha. Itai safra. Similarly, again, I will say if the sofer is unsure how we should date the documents. Remember, again, under normal circumstances, we should be dating ourselves or dating things or keeping track of time based on the Churban. But the scribes were dating their documents based on the monarchy of Greece. So again, essentially, if I'm not sure of how many years since the Churban, take whatever date the sofer is using and add on 20 years. Similarly, meaning the number 20 to the last digits of the year of the sofer is using. Similarly, if the sofer doesn't know which year, how we should date the document, ask the Tana, tell me how are you dating your documents, or what count do you have, and what? Subtract 20 from that, and you will have the answer to your question. And I will say the way to remember this is Safra Betsira, the scribe detracts or takes away, Tana Tosva, and the Tana adds on. Okay? Tana Debe'elio. Sheshes Alafim Shana Have Olam. We'll say, listen to this, an amazing Gemara. So Tana Debe'elio said, the world exists for 6,000 years. 6,000 years. Shnei Alafim To. We'll say 2,000 years are astonishingly empty. And we'll say, now what's mean like Tovavo? What does that mean? So we'll say, Rashi points out what that means is the first 2,000 years are without Torah. The Gemara is making the assumption, although we'll challenge it, is that the Torah is given in the second 2,000 years of the creation of the world. So the first 2,000 years is Tohu because the Torah has not yet been given. Shnei Alafim Tohu, Shnei Alafim Torah. The second 2,000 years, Rabbi say, is called the period of Torah, and Shnei Alaf Yemos Mashiach. And Rabbi say the last 2,000 years, ultimately again, is Yemos Mashiach, is the Messianic era. So Rabbi say, so again, this is the way the world was, quote unquote, supposed to work. First 2,000 years of the world's existence without Torah. Second year of 2,000 years is called the period of Torah. And the last period of 2,000 years is called Yemos HaMashiach. However, Ba'avonosenu Shirabu Yatso Mehen Mashi Yatso Mehen. Rabbi say, obviously, the Gemara says, we find ourselves now in the last 2,000 years, and yet what? Mashiach is still not here. So obviously, again, we've messed things up. Obviously, again, we've made mistakes that ultimately, again, have caused us not yet to encounter Yemos HaMashiach. That's what it means. Ba'avosinu Shirabu, because of our incredible mistakes, Yatsu Mehen Mashi Yatsu Mehen. Whatever has elapsed has already elapsed. So the Gemara says, Shnei Alafim Torah Me'emas. So I'll say, now let's analyze this. When do the 2,000 years of Torah begin from? Torah. If you want to say ultimately again, it begins from Sinaitic revelation. Ad hashta leka kulehai. Then I will say, here's the problem. Dechi ma'ayonos behu trei alfi prate dehai alfuhu dahavi. So I'll say, here's the problem. The problem is that if we measure ultimately the amount of time from creation until Matan Torah, that's actually more than 2,000 years. So therefore, when exactly does the 2,000 years of Torah actually begin? Ella meve'es hanefesh asher asu b'charan. Rather, you have to say that the count begins, I will say, from where? From es hanefesh asher asu b'charan. Ultimately, again, I will say, what's es hanefesh asher asu b'charan? That's Avram Avinu. And that's speaking about the fact that by Lech Lecha, when Avram Avinu leaves leaves Haran in order to go and come to Eretz Canaan. So the pasuk says he takes with him who? The people, the nefesh that he made in Haran, which also refers to what? The people who Avram Avinu quote unquote converted. Not converted to Judaism, there is no Judaism, but rather converts ultimately to what? To monotheism. It's monotheism. So the Rambam discusses this in Hilchos Avodas Kochavim, and he discusses what Avram Avinu did and the dramatic way in which Avram Avinu impacted the lives of so many. He taught people about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Gemara suggests that ultimately, again, that's where the clock starts from. So the Gemara says, the Avram by Hishaita, because Avram at that moment when he was literally converting people and bringing them to Eretz Yisrael was Bar Chamshin V'Tarti Hava, was 52 years. Kama Batzrin Miditani Tana. And so the Gemara, so I'm sorry, Tarti V'Shana Hava. So he was 52 years old. So say, by the way, it's also such an interesting thing, just as an aside. I'm always struck by this. You see how the greatest biblical figures really only go ahead and accomplish those dramatic events really in their older years. I mean, not that 52 is old, but not at all. Not at all. I want to be clear. 52 is very young. 52 is the new 32. You know. So, but I do want to point out that it is interesting. The same way you have a Moshe Rabbeinu at 80 years old. All of these great people accomplishing great things at what we'll call more mature ages. Very dramatic. So the Gemara says, Kama Batzrin Miditanitana. So ultimately, again, how many years are missing from the second period of 2,000 years? Arba mea va'arbaim v'timni yashnin. So we'll say ultimately again it's 448 years. So the Gemara says Kimeyanta be me'anefesh asher asu b'charan al matan Torah. So when you begin to count ultimately again from that event of hanefesh asher asu b'charan until matan Torah, what do you end up with? We'll say Arba mea va'arbaim v'timni yashnin havyan. We'll say that's ultimately again how you end up with 448 years. So we'll say therefore it turns out that the clock for Matan Torah doesn't actually begin from where? Doesn't actually begin from Bereshis, but rather again ultimately begins from this episode, almost like this first Kabbalah Satorah. Although it wasn't really Kabbalah Satorah, of course, it was Avram Avinu converting people to monotheism, but that's ultimately where the clock starts from, and that makes up for the discrepancy of 448 years. Amar Papa. So that Papa says, "Itoi Tana v'lo yada prati." So we'll say, going back to what we said before, if the Tana is not sure and he's not sure what year it is, v'lo yada prati kamahavi, the shayle the safra. So the Tana doesn't know how many years it is since the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Also, if you look at Rashi, Rashi says over here it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lines up from the bottom. Last couple of words on line. Ita itana, Titani ubavano sinu shirabu yotza mehen mashi yatsu. Verotze limnos kama yotzu mimos hamashiach. V'toa b'shana shas. Also, it's a little bit different. Beforehand, we were discussing about if somebody wants to track the number of years since the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. How do you track that? So we gave the formula for that. Now let's say somebody wants to track. We've already discussed the idea that technically we're in what the Gemara calls should be Yemos HaMashiach, Messianic era. Let's say someone wants to track how many years from the Messianic era have already elapsed, but he doesn't know how to track that time. So what should you do? L'shayle l'safra kameksiv. Ask a sofer how he's dating his documents. V'nitvi alayhu arboin v'tamni. And go ahead and add on to that 48. Umashkich le'luchumre. And you will ultimately find the answer to your question. So add on the number 48, and that'll give you, because again, I also remember the Sofrim are still counting or I should say dating their staros in accordance with the monarchy of Greece, which we'll discuss a little bit more on days. Add on 48 to that, and ultimately you'll be able to figure out how many years into the Messianic period we are. Again, going with the model of 2000, 2000, and 2000. This simanich, we'll say on days, and the way to remember this is Arba Ushmonim Ir. So we'll say the way to remember that, this is just a mnemonic to remember the number. The pasuk has nothing to do, we'll say, with Messianic era. The pasuk is about the Arei Halavim, the Levitic cities. But the idea ultimately is that it's a way to remember the number 48. V'tai Safra, and ultimately again, if the Sofer makes a mistake and is unsure ultimately again about how to date his documents, Nishayle Letana Kama Katani, let him ask the Tana ultimately again how he's dating, or I should say, what count he is up to in tracking time. And v'niftzar minayu arboim ushmona. Let him subtract 48 from that. Umashkich le'luchumrei, and he'll be able to figure out how he should date his documents. So the Gemara says, "V'simanich," and how do you remember? What's the mnemonic to remember who to ask what? Safra b'tzira tanu tasva. Both say the way to remember this is the sofer goes ahead and diminishes, and the Tana adds on. Okay, Amar Afuna B'Rei Rav Yeshua. So listen to this. Hayman delo yada kama shani b'shavuah omeid. Both say, what happens if I don't know which year of the Shemitah cycle I am in? So we'll say, this is just the Gemara giving me different ways to try to track time. Rashi says over here, top Rashi, Hayman delo yada b'kama shani b'shavua, koi, leminyan seder Shmitos, shal Yisrael monin v'holchin b'fnei abayis. We'll say, now this is actually very interesting. Let's say a person gets confused, and they're just not sure what year of the Shemitah cycle am I in. I also remember again, this had ramifications, of course, when the Beis Hamikdash stood. They came along, Shvius Bizman Hazen Naga. Va'afilu Rabbi Meir Da'amar Bizman Sha'ata Mishamid Karka Ata Mishamid Ksafim. So we'll say, remember, we actually saw this referenced. There's a fundamental machlokes, ultimately again, does Shemitah apply midoraisa when there is no Beis Hamikdash? That is a fundamental machlokes. But, so we'll say, but even according to Rabbi Meir, who says that ultimately Shemitah is not in effect midaraisa, even he will agree that Shemitah is in effect midirabanan. We'll say, by the way, this is a contemporarily relevant machlokes, whether or not Shemitah is daraisa dirabanan, because this has an incredible impact on which heterim one is permitted to employ contemporarily for the observance of Shemitah. So the idea is whether you hold Shemitah as daraisa or dirabanan bizman hazeh doesn't matter. The idea is it's important to know which year of the Shemitah cycle you're in. So let's say a person doesn't know Hayman delo yoda kamashani b'shavua omeid. Let's say I'm not sure again which year of the Shemitah cycle I'm standing in. So we'll say, how do I do this? How do I remember? Nitfi chad shasa v'nechshav klale biyovel uprate b'shavua. So we'll say, what should I do? Add on 1 year. Rashi says over here, Nitfi chad shasa al shnin de churban v'ad shana shu omeid ba. So we'll say, watch this. Add on 1 year to the number of years since the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay? Now we'll say, and if you take a look at Rashi, Rashi actually goes on. He says over here something very interesting. He says, Mehai tam edesanya megalgalin schus liyom zakai v'chov liyom chayiv shekishacharav habayis berishona matzeh Shabbos haya u'matzeh Shviyos haya. We'll say, when the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, it was destroyed on a matzeh Shabbos and on a matzeh Shviyos, meaning it was the year right after Matzeh Shviyos, right after a Shemitah year. The Tisha B'Av Haya. So we'll say we know it was Tisha B'Av. V'chein b'shniya. So to Rabbi say, apparently, same thing by the second Beis Hamikdash. Matzei Shabbos and Matzei Shvius. Alma, Shasa d'churban aschalta d'shmita l'mihadr. Rabbi say, now what does it mean when you say that a year is Matzei Shvius? What does Matzei Shvius mean, Rabbi say? Matzei Shvius means year one of the next cycle, right? Meaning it's the end of the previous cycle. Remember again, the Shemitah cycles just go one into the other. There's no interruption in between. So Matzei Shvius means the end of the previous cycle, beginning of the new cycle. Therefore again, Alma Shasa d'churban aschalta d'shmita lemehadar havas uman demasni l'shnei churban lo mani lahi shasa b'hadi shani d'churban ella b'hadi shani d'kam basis. Most listen to this. Hold enough. Therefore again, if I want to go ahead and I want to figure out what year of the Shemitah cycle I'm on, take the years since the Churban, Nitvi Chad Shasa, add on 1 year, V'nachshov Klali B'yovel, Uprati B'shavuei. And I will say, figure out, look at Rashi, V'nachshov Klali, Hameos B'yovli, Shtei Yovlos Lamea L'katzeminayu. Figure out from that number how many Yovel cycles you could fit, or you could divide into that number. And then we'll say, Uprati B'shavui, figure out how many cycles of 7 you could divide into that number. V'nishkol mimea trei, v'nishte aprati, and then go ahead, Rabbi Say, and Rashi says, v'nishkol mikol mea trei, v'nishte aprati, Rabbi Yehuda damar shnas chamishim ola lekan lekan. So Rabbi Say, Rashi then gets on to here, which the only problem, the only challenge with the math is what you do with year number 50. Rabbi Say, year number 50 is an interesting machlokes as to how exactly that fits in with the Shemitah cycle. Is that part of the previous cycle, or is that part of the next cycle? V'nachshavinu leprati b'shavui. And I will say, ultimately, again, divide that number by the number 7 to figure out how many Shemitah cycles. V'yoda karma shani b'shavua. And you'll be able, I will say, to figure out what year of the Shemitah cycle you are in. Okay? V'simanech, and I will say, the way to remember this is kizesh nasaim harav b'kerev haaretz. Because and the way to remember this ultimately is because again, these are the years of the famine in the midst of the land. So we'll say these are all just different ways. The Gemara is giving us ways to remember the years since the Churban, ways to remember ultimately again the number of years that we are into the quote unquote Messianic era, and now ultimately ways to figure out what number Shemitah year we are in the midst of. Fine. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Achar Arba Meos L'Chorban Abayis. Supposed to listen to this. So now we're switching gears for a little bit. So now we'll say, once the Gemara kind of brought up this topic of 2,000 years Tohu, 2,000 years Torah, 2,000 years Mashiach, and even though we find ourselves in the midst of the quote-unquote Messianic era, Mashiach is not yet here. So we attribute that ultimately again to Avonosina Rabbim, to our sinful behavior. So the Gemara now says something amazing. Now that we're speaking about Messianic calculations, the Gemara makes reference to another Messianic calculation. Amar Rabbi Chanina, Achar Arba Meos L'Chorban Abayis. After 400 years after the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash, so Rabbi Chanina is saying, 400, essentially Rabbi Chanina's position is, Mashiach will come 400 years after the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash. That was his calculation. Therefore, again, he says, Im yomer lecha adam kach sadeh shava elef dinarim b'dinar echad lo tikach. Therefore, Rabbi Chanina says, even if somebody offers you to go ahead and buy a very expensive piece of land for a very cheap price, a piece of land worth 1,000 dinar, and he offers you to buy it for a dinar, don't buy it. Don't buy it. I will say, why shouldn't you buy? Look at Rashi. It's about six, seven lines up from the bottom. Al tikach shikeitza geula v'tikabetz lahar hakodesh lenachalas avosecha v'lamet tafsir dinar. So Rabbi Chanina was convinced that Mashiach is coming. These were his calculations. He was convinced that the Mashiach was coming 400 years after the Churban. He says, as we come up on the 400 years, even if somebody offers to sell you an expensive piece of real estate for a very small amount of money, don't waste your money. Because what's going to happen? Mashiach's going to come. So what happens when Mashiach comes? What happens? Remember again, property gets redivided amongst the Shvatim. So why should you even go ahead and lose out on a little bit of money? So I'll say it's amazing. This was the advice of Rabbi Chanina. Whatever the nature of his calculation, I will say, no, It doesn't have to mean his calculation was wrong. It can mean the calculation was right. But calculations are only meaningful if what was saying, if we are on the appropriate level for redemption. Meaning Mashiach is always ready to come at any single moment. We just have to ready ourselves. Rabbi Hanina said 400 years, and as you're coming up on the 400th year, don't spend any money on real estate. Because when Mashiach comes, all bets are off. Real estate is redistributed amongst tribal lines. Tana Acher, also you have another ruling like this. Arba'as alafim umasayim ushloshim va'achas shana labriyas ha'olam. So we'll say, so literally 4,231 years after the destruction, after the creation of the world, im yomer lecha adam kach lecha sada shava elef dinar b'dinar echad al tikach. So we'll say, this is another messianic calculation. In this messianic calculation, Mashiach is supposed to come in 4,231 years after the creation of the world. Okay? So therefore, as you come up on the 4,231st year, if somebody offers to go ahead and sell you land, even at a deep discount, don't buy it. Don't buy it. Why not? Because the Maisa, again, same idea. Mashiach is going to come, redistribute property, and you're going to get what you're rightfully entitled to without having to spend any money. Al tikach my benayu. I will say, what exactly is the difference in these two calculations? Ika benayu tlas shnin. We'll say, interestingly enough, the only real difference between these calculations is 3 years. Meaning Rabbi Chanina's calculation, ultimately again, and the calculation as brought down in this brisa are pretty much in the same category, just the difference in 3 years. The Masnisa tafya tlis shnin. Both say, according to the Mishnah just quoted, there's an extra 3 years until Messianic arrival. Incredible, I will say. So the Gemara says the following. Both say, Hahushtara davik sibbe. We'll just do one more piece. There was another star that had written in it the following. Both say, top of Yud. Shis shnin yeserasa. Both say, this is actually quite interesting. So they had a star that came before the Beis Din. And what happens? The star seemingly was post-dated 6 years. So the date that it had on it was plus 6 years. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Tap Rashi on Yulam Adalev. Shis shnin yeserasa. Shebalifnei Beis Din b'shana shenichtav bo. Umatza bo sheish shanim yoser miminyanim. So we'll say it was dated 6 years ahead. Kigon shahayu. Oh, now remember again, this is talking about shtaros that were dated in accordance with the Greek monarchy. Kigon shayu omdim b'shnas chamesh meos l'malchus yavan. Ubo hayakasa b'shana chamesh meos v'sheish shanim. Lava ploni mi ploni. Ustam hayakasa v'lahayakasa v'shumalchus. So let's listen to this. So let's say, for example, it was the 500th year, in the reign of the Greek Empire. So what happens? This star had written in it 506th year. So we'll say the way this plays out is it says in the 506th year of the reign of the Greek Empire, so Reuven lent money to Shimon. So we'll say, so what happens? Savra Rabbanan Kamid Rav Lemeimar, Haishtar Mu'ucharhu. So we'll say the Rabbanan came. So when the star came before Beis Din, they didn't know what to do with it. So the Rabbanan assumed this is what's called the Shtar Mu'uchar. We'll say what's the Shtar Mu'uchar? Is a post-dated star. Is a post-dated star kosher? And the answer is yes. Because it will say, who's put at a disadvantage through Shtar Mu'uchar? The lender. Why? I will say because when you have a document, if I lend money to someone, I lend money to Reuven, and I have a document, that document creates a lien against Reuven's property. If it's the Shtar Mu'uchar, I will say, then when does the lien begin? The lien only begins as of the date in the Shtar. If I, as the lender, want to go ahead and defer my lien, that's my prerogative. I have the right to do that, whether it's a good idea or not is irrelevant. So again, the document comes before the Beis Din. It should be dated 500th year. It's dated the 506th year. The Rabbanan said, okay, shtar mo'ocher, ne'akve ad dematyos maneh v'lo tarif. So we'll say, therefore, the lender is really precluded from collecting from the debt, and he's also precluded from having his lien devolve upon any property until the date spelled out in the actual shtar itself. Rashi says, Mu'ocharhu, milva asa imo tova, the lender did a tova, he did a favor for the borrower, umachalo shibud karkos al sheishanim, and essentially, again, he was mocha the lien against property for 6 years. V'chol mishayikne karka, v'chol mishayikne karko b'soch sheishanim, Eino mafsid, shayizman mechira kodin lizman tarfos ashtar. Therefore, I will say, any property even that let's say the borrower sells between the time that the shtar was written, and the actual date has no lien against it. And therefore, even in the event that the borrower defaults, the lender can only collect property as of when? As of the date written in the shtar, not as the date of the actual loan. If again, it seems like a foolish idea, but if the lender wants to do that, that's his prerogative. So the shtar is kosher, and we just look at it as a shtar ma'ucher. Rav Nachman, no. Hai safra dukna kasve. No, there was a very proficient scribe who wrote the shtar Avoda. This is a Meduya Dika Sofer. Look at Rashi says, Safra Dukna Kasve Medaktek Becheshbonosu. This is a Sofer who is very medaktek in dating shtaros. Right? Very medaktek in dating shtaros who wrote this. Ve'heino holech acharenu. So we'll say, now watch this. Now, how do we account for the 6 years? We'll come back to Rashi in just a moment. V'hanach shis shnin demalchu be'ilam. We'll say the additional 6 years refers to the 6 years where the reign of Greece was confined to the region of Elam, where Greece was not yet a regional superpower, but they just controlled the area of Elam. For 6 years they ruled in Elam. We'll say it's an area, it's a place. They ruled in Elam, but their malchus was not nespashta, did not spread out. Da'ana lo chashvina lahu. When we normally date our documents, we don't normally incorporate those 6 years as part of the reign of Greece, because we look at the reign of Greece as when Rabbi was saying, when Greece ruled over the entire region, not in this time when they just ruled over Elam. Yet, ana lo chashvina lahu, hu kachashiv lei. Ultimately, again, but obviously, this sofer is ultimately including these 6 years in the dating of his documents, and ultimately, again, he is including that time. So we'll say, this is ultimately how Rav Nachman understood the discrepancy. He attributed the 6 year discrepancy to the fact that this sofer is very medayik in recording the reign of Greece, and ultimately, again, adding in the 6 years before Greece went out and became a regional superpower. Desanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Sheish Shanim Malcho Be'elam, Greece reigned in Elam for 6 years, V'achar kach, Pashta Malchusam B'chola Olam Kulo. And only afterwards did their reign extend over the entire world. We normally don't count the 6 years. This sofer did count the 6 years, and that accounts for the 6 year discrepancy. We'll say, how does Rav Nachman know to say this? So remember again, we'll say, Rav Nachman is taking into account two things. Number one, people don't normally write a shtar mu'ocher. If I'm lending someone money, people do not post-date shtaros. They just, that's not the common thing. Number two, it just happens to be that the number we're dealing with is 6. You put those two things together, and Rav Nachman therefore felt it was much more reasonable to say that this was a very proficient sofer, it was medaktik in dating, and therefore it counted the reign of Greece from the time that they were ruling in Elam, rather than to attribute this, or rather than to go ahead and identify the shtar as a shtar much. We'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up in Meretz Hashem at the 2 dots tomorrow.